We all hold our breath when we pass someone smoking because somewhere in our minds we all know smoking is dangerous. We see the warnings on cigarette packets, we hear about the lung cancer, we know that every cigarette contains toxic chemicals, and yet around 1 in 5 adults worldwide is still used. So, what actually happens inside the body when someone smokes? How does a cigarette burning for just a few minutes eventually become capable of causing cancer, heart disease, stroke, and respiratory failure? Welcome to Chronicle. Let's start with what's inside a cigarette. A cigarette is made primarily from tobacco, and tobacco contains a highly addictive chemical called nicotine. Nicotine is what keeps people coming back. When cigarette smoke is inhaled, nicotine reaches the brain within seconds, where it triggers the release of chemicals associated with pleasure and reward. The effect doesn't last very long, so when nicotine levels fall, the brain begins to want more. And that is how a habit can become dependence. But nicotine is not the only problem because a cigarette is not simply delivering nicotine, it is delivering smoke. And that smoke contains thousands of chemicals, including many that are toxic and dozens that can cause cancer. Once inhaled, those chemicals begin interacting with the body almost immediately. And the first major organ they encounter is the lungs. To understand what happens there, look inside a healthy airway. Your lungs have a built-in cleaning system. Tiny hair-like structures called cilia line much of the respiratory tract. They constantly move mucus and trap particles out of the airways. But cigarette smoke repeatedly damages these cilia. As they become less effective, mucus and particles are harder to clear. The airways become irritated and inflamed, and this creates another problem. The lungs have to work harder to move air through damaged, narrowed airways. Over time, continued exposure to smoke can contribute to chronic bronchitis and emphysema, two conditions associated with COPD. In emphysema, alveoli are destroyed. Alveoli are where oxygen normally passes into the bloodstream. So as they are damaged, the lungs lose part of the surface area they need to exchange gases. Less efficient lungs means less efficient breathing. And this is why someone with advanced COPD can become short of breath doing something as ordinary as walking. But smoke is not only destroying lung tissue, they are damaging DNA. Every cell in your body contains DNA. It is essentially the instruction manual that tells a cell how to function, when to divide, and when to stop. Normally, cells have repair mechanism that can fix damaged DNA. But tobacco smoke repeatedly exposes cell to chemicals capable of damaging those instructions. If enough important mutation accumulate, a normal cell can begin dividing uncontrollably. This is how cancer can begin. And because tobacco chemicals don't remain confined to one small area, smoking can increase the risk of cancers in many parts of the body. Smoking is also associated with acute myeloid leukemia. But there is another route by which cigarette smoke damages the body, and it happens through the bloodstream. When you inhale cigarette smoke, one of the gases entering your lungs is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide has a dangerous property. It binds to hemoglobin in your red blood cells much more readily than oxygen does. Hemoglobin is supposed to carry oxygen from your lungs to the rest of your body. But when carbon monoxide occupies some of these binding sites, less oxygen can be transported effectively. At the same time, nicotine stimulates the cardiovascular system. It can increase the heart rate, blood pressure, cause blood vessels to constrict, and repeated exposure to tobacco smoke damages the inner lining of those vessels. The body responds to this damage with inflammation and changes that can encourage the buildup of fatty deposits inside arteries. The arteries become narrower and less flexible. Now the heart has to work harder to push blood through them. Smoking also makes the blood more prone to clotting. If a clot blocks an artery supplying the heart, part of the heart muscles can be starved of oxygen. That's a heart attack. If a clot blocks an artery supplying the brain cells begin losing oxygen. That's a stroke. So the same cigarette that began by damaging the lungs can eventually interfere with the blood supply to the heart and brain. But there is still more, because the chemicals entering the bloodstream don't simply disappear. They can travel throughout the body. Some of these chemicals can affect organs far away from the lungs. Smoking can weaken immune defenses. It can also affect reproductive health in both men and women. And the DNA damage caused by tobacco exposure can occur in cells throughout the body. This is why smoking is not really a lung disease. The lungs may be where the smoke enters, but the consequences can reach almost everywhere. And perhaps the most dangerous part is that much of this damage happens quietly. A person can smoke for years while their body continues compensating. The lungs keep working, the heart keeps pumping, cells keep repairing damage until eventually the accumulated injuries became too much. A damaged cell becomes cancerous, a damaged lung loses its ability to exchange oxygen, a damaged artery becomes blocked, and a blood clot cuts off oxygen to the heart or brain. Smoking really has to destroy the body all at once, it can do it gradually. One cigarette, then another, and another. Each one exposing the body to chemicals that can damage its cell, its lungs, and its blood vessels. The cigarette may burn for only a few minutes, but the damage it starts can continue long after the smoke disappears.